Welcome.
Hey, welcome everybody. We'll give people a minute for audio to connect.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Tanya, Amy, glad to have you with us.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
Hey, we're asking
Welcome.
people in these first few minutes if you can introduce yourself in the chat, your name and organization, and if you've got a favorite memory from a house party, go ahead and drop that in the chat as well. So,
Tanya, what organization are you from?
I am a board member with LaShawn, the Louisiana Community Outreach Network,
all
Oh,
right.
and Resilience Force. Jeff, I remember you.
Holy cow! Yes, Tanya, how you doing?
I'm good.
Oh
I'm
my
good.
gosh! So what's the latest?
Oh my, so everything is ending with Resilience Corps
Okay.
July 1st.
Okay. All
So
right.
the COVID funding is expiring.
Okay.
So now we're just preparing to channel community health workers into more viable positions, full-time positions with some of our
Great.
community partners.
Oh, that's fantastic.
so what's
So
Resilience Force?
Resilience Force is a national nonprofit organization, to disaster response and recovery.
Oh,
And I guess that's the umbrella. Resilience Corps is our community health workers. So
oh,
your grassroots people get out into communities and educated them on COVID vaccines and connected them to resources in the communities that were really heavily impacted, vulnerable communities in New Orleans.
wow, that's great. So
so
important.
I was chief operating officer at that organization when the
Ah,
pandemic hit,
Yeah.
and
ah,
the working in New Orleans, we worked with the mayor's office and others to develop a community health worker outreach program. And Tanya was one of the first people hired there, and one of the superstars of just like health outreach in communities. So um, it's exciting to see you again.
I
So
know, and now I
okay.
was asked to join the board at LaShawn, so I still have work to do. It may not be Resilience Force, but I'm carrying everything
all
over.
good. That's all good.
Exciting opportunities. Thank you.
Great.
So welcome to people who just joined, Jennifer, Laura, and Amy. I think you bounced off and back on. Welcome back.
Feel free to drop in the chat your name, the organization you work with, and if you've got a favorite memory from a house party, you can drop that in there as well. So,
We're just going to wait about one more minute and get started because we know some people join a little late and we don't want to lose our valuable minutes with Jeff. This is Tanya's first house party. That's hilarious. Okay, let's make it a party. Oh, who's your action? That's great.
all right.
All right. So maybe we'll just get started with some of the kind of intro stuff. How would that
Yeah.
be? And then as people join, hopefully they won't miss too much. So hi, everybody. Those of you who can be on video, I encourage you to. It's especially since we're talking about events where people actually see each other, mostly in person. It would be nice to see you all. So thanks for doing that. I'm Stephanie Roth, and I'm with Klein and Roth Consulting, and we're one of the lead consulting groups that's put together this fundraising for health justice program. I recognize some of you from past trainings, and some of you, your organizations, I recognize as having been doing one-on-one consulting with some of our fundraising team. And I'm very excited about this training. House parties are actually one of my favorite fundraising strategies for all kinds of reasons, which Jeff will elaborate on, but they really combine a lot of the elements of successful fundraising, bringing new people into an organization, building relationships, having fun, building community, and raising money. So really glad that we're doing this one. Before I turn it over to Jeff, just a couple of things I want to mention. One is that we always have a really short evaluation form at the end of these trainings, and we'll encourage you to fill that out. It will just take a couple of minutes, but it really helps us and our trainer learn from what went well and what you might suggest for improvements. I also want to introduce Avery, our Zoom tech person, who will come on briefly to say hi. Avery's been with us through this whole project, so some of you recognize her from past trainings, and she's available for any problems you might be having with your Zoom technology. You can directly message her or just put something in the chat saying, Avery, I need your help. And let's see, what else? Oh, those of you who are working with a one-on-one consultant, I think you probably know by now that we've extended the timeline for this project through November of this year. If you are wrapping up sooner, that's totally fine too, whatever you need in the coming months. And what's the final thing? Oh, the final thing is we have one more training coming up in this Fundraising for Health Justice series on special events. So Jeff's going to talk about house parties, which is a small scale, more intimate event, but we're doing one on special events that are larger public events with Jessica De Jesus, who's a longtime amazing event planner. And that will be in July. I can't remember the date now, but you're getting a lot of notifications from Ambar Pinto, my colleague on this project. And so just keep your eyes open for that. But it's sometime towards mid or end of July. And then finally, we have a peer learning cohort coming up in June with those folks who are advanced fundraisers. That is, you've been doing fundraising as a volunteer or paid staff person for at least 4 years. And there'll be information coming out soon about that as well, starting in June. Okay, so let me introduce Jeff, who is an amazing fundraiser with a background in organizing and nonprofit management, and has worked for local, statewide, and national organizations, all kinds of amazing social justice issues, comes with a wealth of experience. I met Jeff he mentioned the GIFT conference, which for those of you who don't know about GIFT, it's an organization that no longer exists, but held several amazing fundraising for social justice conferences around the country. And Jeff was well known for one of the most fun workshops of the whole conference on house parties, where people actually organized and did an actual house party in the workshop. So that was really fun and people loved it. So we're really thrilled that he's willing to reprise that workshop on Zoom. And it's not quite the same as in person, but really thrilled that he's willing to do it. So Jeff, take it away.
All right. Great to be with you all. I'm so excited for the training today and to talk about house parties. Let me make sure that I can get my screen set up here, and then I'll give you a little bit more intro information. First of all, just to let everybody know, I love helping to raise money for grassroots groups. And have worked at several of them over the years, both on staff as a consultant and as a volunteer. House party fundraisers are my absolute favorite kind of fundraising event, and am excited to talk about them with you today. Like I said, we won't be doing a full-on house party at the end of this session, but you will have a chance to do some practice in terms of making a pitch for support that you could do at a house party. So. For those of you who may know me well, also know that I'm a musician. I play blues and jazz harmonica. So your incentive to stick around for all 75 minutes of today's session is that if you stay through the end, I'm gonna play a song for you all. So it is worth sticking around to hear that. So when people who raise money talk about a house party fundraiser, it's not just any kind of benefit that happens to be at a house. It's a specific approach to an event that has one fundamental value, and that is simplicity. You get a group of people in a room and you ask them for money. You don't need a band or a split the pot raffle or an 80s music karaoke contest. You just get people in a room, and fundamentally, you bring them together and you ask them for money. So if you've ever organized a birthday party, a barbecue, a gathering at your house, you already have all the skills that you need to do a successful house party. So a house party fundraiser makes sense for many organizations for a number of reasons. One, it's not a lot of work for the organization. If you do your job right, the host does most of the work, and even the host job is pretty manageable. Second, it's a good way to get new people involved in fundraising for your organization. This could be board members, volunteers, staff that are new to fundraising, and allies. So bringing new people into the work in a meaningful way. And then finally, you don't have to be a big or a well-connected organization to do a house party fundraiser well. In fact, it can be a powerful tool for organizations that serve low-income people, people of color, non-English speaking people, youth, or other constituencies that aren't the usual suspects for fundraising events. Okay, so the most important thing that you need for a successful house party is a fly disco outfit, as pictured in the slide here. Actually, the most important thing that you need for a successful house party is to have at least one committed host. Yeah. Sometimes you'll have co-hosts, 2, 3, multiple hosts that can share the work and that can also help you to get a bigger invite list. The host or co-hosts are responsible for 5 things. So the host provides the space, most often at their house. They invite the guests. They make the ask for money. They make the first contribution to the organization at the party. And then they thank all of the guests after the event. So we'll look at those one at a time. But these are when you are approaching people to be a host or co-host for a house party, you want to ask them if they are willing to do these 5 things. And I should say we'll have the slides available for folks after the meeting as well if you want to refer back to them. So, okay, so the space, which doesn't necessarily have to be a house. Most often it is the host's or one of the host's living rooms. If you know somebody with a fancy house that people would ooh and ah over, you can ask them to co-host. But in many cases, just any house, apartment, living room will do for folks. Doing it at a house makes sure that you've got kind of a warm and informal feel to this, which I think is part of what you want to be able to have. Although it can happen in any type of space. You can do it at the host's office. You can do it at a church basement. You can do it in a backyard. But as part of that, anything you can do to make people feel at home, at least emotionally in that space, can be helpful. Refreshments are nice, but again, going back to the rule of simplicity, I've been to house parties that have been fancy wine and cheese events. I've also been to equally successful house parties that have a bag of pretzels and a gallon of apple juice. The host is often responsible for the refreshments. If they've got stuff they want to cook or bring, that's totally fine. Potluck is doable for a house party so long as you make it clear to guests that they need to bring food and money for the event. So the food in itself is not, we're asking for more than just food. So
actually, Jeff, do you mind if I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah, please do. And as you've got other ideas and stuff, feel free.
Well, and I want to encourage others to, raise your hand or put something in chat if you have a question. But just as a what's the word? A friendly amendment to Jeff's thing about food. I actually happen to think food is really important. And I think there may be some cultural issues here about what, who thinks food is important and who doesn't. And so I just want you to play to your strengths or what you think your audience or guest list is going to expect. So I would never just have a bag of pretzels at my house. Having said that, I wouldn't be offended to go to someone's event if that's all they had. But so just wanted to offer that as an alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been, uh, you know, we did we had a host once that was doing a house party for the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. She was Filipina and inviting a bunch of her Filipina friends, and so she cooked traditional food as part of that event, kind of made for a special part of that event. The so yeah, I agree with Stephanie. Like, it can actually be a pretty special part of making people feel welcome and at home. The I think the only thing to make it a point is don't get so stuck on the food that you focus on that as opposed to why you're there, which is actually raising money from folks. So
Yeah,
um,
I agree.
the beauty of a house party, is that, and again, I love house parties. There are people that do like bigger event fundraising better than I do because I am not your guy to figure out like what color the tablecloths are going to be. So the having an event where you don't have to worry about that stuff kind of, strips away the bells and whistles and really focuses on why you're there to raise money. So yes, food can be an important part of this, depending on what you're trying to make happen. So the guests. So again, the host. We are relying on the hosts to bring guests to the party. This is a chance to expose people to the organization, often for the first time. So some hosts are experienced at throwing parties that a lot of people come to, but many aren't. So it is, as an organizer for a house party, it makes sense to work very closely with the host to make sure that you are setting them up for success in terms of inviting people. So uh, people these days are more likely to invite guests electronically rather than by mailing out paper invites to people. And that's okay so long as they are personal invites. If you just put out a generic email to your list of 100 people, then you're going to have 99 people that decide to ignore that email. The best case that you want here is for your host to be able to reach out to folks individually and confirm, are you gonna come? Um, so for that, there's some organizer math here. If you want 12 people in the room, you probably need a list of about 50 that you're gonna invite. So because you will have people that you can't get a hold of, you will have people that say they're gonna come and don't come. Just you need to be able to set expectations with the host in terms of the invitations that are going to get, or co-hosts, so that you get a reasonable amount of people in the room. So getting a yes or no commitment from folks is really helpful there. And then yeah, understanding too that you want folks that you imagine would be friendly to the organization, but for most people coming to the house party, they're there because the host invites them. So it's the same dynamic as when a friend invites you to go see their band. You may end up loving the band or you may not, but it'll mean a lot to the person that invited you to go. And so the people at the house party are there because it's important to the host for them to be there. And ideally, your organization can be a good band that people then want to come back and see again and again. But the host is really the key to getting people to come. So When you ask people to come, you want them to know that this is a fundraising event and that they should be prepared, come prepared to give. People, very few people bring checkbooks anymore, but you can take checks or a credit card to be, prepared to give. There are different schools of thought in terms of, do I ask people in advance to come prepared to give a certain amount? I generally don't. My sense is that people in the moment giving a gift that is meaningful to them generally give more than what I expect, like a cover charge to be. So I invite people to come and just say, hey, bring a credit card, give what feels meaningful to you at the time. And during the event, they hear about the organization, they're excited, they may end up giving more than they thought they would walking in the door, too. So, if you ask somebody to come and they can't come, you should say, okay, well, would you still be willing to give a gift to the organization? And if you're on the phone with them, you can open up your organization's website and even just take their credit card information over the phone, and bam, that's done. So even the people that say no, you can still have them help contribute to the fundraising effort, even if they're not in the room. Apart from the host, nearly all of the attendees will be new donors to the organization. Even if they have the capacity to give more, they will usually give what's a typical entry-level gift for them. So, I generally go in with modest expectations in terms of what you can raise. Unless you've got a bunch of high rollers whose like typical first gift is $1,000, you should expect, 25, 50, 100, a couple hundred maybe. But like depending on your audience, whatever they would give to an organization that they don't necessarily know that they've been asked to give to. And then make sure to get contact information for everybody. You can do that via sign-in list. And if people give donations electronically, it'll collect you ought to be able to get that electronically as well. All right. So in terms of an agenda, and again, feel free to interrupt if you got thoughts, questions, whatever. I've got a couple more slides, and then we're going to do some additional questions, and we'll go to practice. So, but a typical 2-hour house party might have an hour reception up front, a 15-minute program, and then 10 minutes for an ask and time for people to make contributions. And then you move on, return to the reception until people leave. So the program out of 2 hours is not that long. Part of what is great about a house party fundraiser is that, especially since the pandemic, people don't have as many opportunities to just go and meet people and socialize and spend time. That will be a memorable piece of what the event is all about. So, so that is the majority of the time that you have with folks together. If they're members of your organization in attendance, they should take the opportunity as well to get to know the attendees. When the program begins, the host will welcome people to the event, and then the organization gets to present a little about the organization. That could include a video, for example. It could include people who have been helped by the organization sharing personal stories of how it's impacted them. It could be it could include a short description by staff or a board member of the organization about what the organization does and why it matters. And as much as possible, you want to keep the tone and the appeal on an emotional level. That you can share about the scope of the problem and such, but it It is people who feel this in their hearts that is what is going to inspire them to actually give during the event. You're going to be tempted to do a longer program than 15 minutes. I'm here to tell you, resist that temptation. Know that a longer program won't get you any more money than a short one. And if anything, if your program goes on and on, it gives people more chances to leave before you actually make the ask. So I'm going to, my advice, having done some of these, is keep it short and sweet and emotionally impactful. Stephanie, go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I have to echo that about short. I was just at an event. It was a house party, but not a fundraiser. It was more cultivation event. And the program went on for like 45 minutes, and I could see people were like, "Get me out of here." Anyway, but more than that, I wanted to actually add to make sure there is time though for people to interact, to ask questions, even to have the people speaking say, what do you all think of what we just shared with you? Because I think that interactive piece can also be very powerful. And you may have people in the room who you don't know have a lot of experience with the issue you're working on, and they'll feel more connected and engaged if you give them a chance to either ask a question or make a comment. So I agree with you, Jeffrey, not to let that go on and on forever, but that's an important piece too.
No, I like that as well. And where I've seen it, it tends to work really well to engage folks. That is generally a time when people, you often have people who will validate the organization to say something. So they're like, hey, I'm a doctor. I see this stuff every day. I'm super excited about what you're doing, and I'm excited to support you all at this event today, and thank you for what you're doing. So you may get those kinds of comments, as well as like, so how many people do you serve? Like, you're probably going to get more of the enthusiastic support from folks than just kind of general questions about the organization. Okay. So then let's take a look at the ask itself. So this is the
Can I
center.
interrupt a second and add one thing?
Yes,
Get on
please.
to that. So I appreciate that you need to keep it short. I also think it's really good to let people know before they come exactly the time frame, that you have a beginning and an ending time. Otherwise, I know people I know just tend to drift in whenever and drift out whenever. And if your, original invitation says 4 to 6, that's,
Yep.
throw that in there.
Very true. Very true. And having people expecting to come until 6, for example, and then the program ends early, means that you're gonna have time for people to actually make a contribution instead of like get out the door before they need to give. So, but 2-hour time window is typical. You can be flexible with that, but I echo Jennifer's idea of you want to let people know in advance how long it's going to last. All right, so the ask, like I said, the centerpiece of the meeting. If you are the host, you should rehearse this with the organizer, somebody from the organization, to making the ask out loud, for friends, colleagues, to your dog, do it in front of a mirror, whatever, but it helps to practice it in advance. Take a minute or two, excuse me, say why the organization is important to you and why you give to the organization. The more that you can share your own personal story with the organization, the more that people are going to hook into it. And again, you're aiming for people's hearts more than their heads. If there is a goal either for the night or as part of the larger campaign, make sure to say what it is and why it's important. So, for example, we're trying to get 200 new donors this month so that we don't have to depend as much on foundations, and we'll have more freedom to do aggressive organizing for affordable health care for those that need it. Or you can say, we're trying to raise $2,000 from people in the room tonight. That money will help low-income families organize and fight for mental health services in their neighborhood. You want to really think in terms of the why to give, in terms of what is the impact it's going to have in people's lives. So, a lot of people, when they ask, will emphasize like what the money actually pays for. So, this money will pay for 2.5 buses for our lobby day at the state capitol. I'm going to advise you against that, and really to focus on, okay, what is that lobby day actually going to mean for the organization and the people that you're trying to help? So if our lobby day is successful, that means immigrant seniors will finally have the ability to see a doctor without fear of debt or deportation. So focusing on that ultimate impact, I think is what can inspire people to want to achieve the goal that you set out. I've learned that the host always makes the first gift, and so the host, and this is the privilege of being a host. You announce, hey, I am making a donation tonight to this organization. I generally encourage people who are willing to say how much they're going to give. If you already give to the organization, or if you're a monthly donor, then I encourage the host to give an extra gift that night. So I'm already a $25 a month donor to the organization. I'm adding an extra one-time gift of $50 because I believe the work is so important. So the host is the reason that people are in the room. When a host or co-host leads by example in making that gift, it's going to encourage others to give as well. If the host is experiencing financial hardship, you can explain that situation and then announce a gift, however small that would be. If that's $5, $10, the guest will still see that example and say, well, hey, if they can do it and they're going through tough times, certainly I can make a generous gift tonight. So, and then you're going to want to have probably 10 minutes. You can have a staff person from the organization talk about specific ways to give. You can give by credit card. Yes, we take PayPal, or whatever. You can give us a check. You can give us cash, whatever. But we are going to take a few minutes now so that you can make your contribution to the organization. And basically what you want is several minutes of kind of awkward silence, or you can have light music in the background, but not conversation. This is the time for people to be like pulling out their phones and going to the website to make a contribution, or filling out, if you've got envelopes on the table that people you want to do it that way. But you have several dedicated minutes for people to actually give.
Yeah, Jeff, can I just add also about, I think it's important to have envelopes, or even just print out a slip of paper that people can fill out, because some people won't be prepared with their credit cards or have their phones. I mean, who doesn't have their phones with them? But anyway, and they could just say that they're pledging $100, and then you can follow up with them later. So you just want to have that available.
Yeah, good point. And you want to make it as easy for people to give in as many different ways as possible. And some people are going to prefer doing it on paper. And so once it looks like everybody who wants to give is given, the host can thank people for coming, say feel free to stay and socialize until the end time of the event, and you're good. That's the ask. And then finally, thanking. So I'm from Chicago, where there is a phrase, a saying that in Chicago we vote early and often. Um, in uh, in fundraising, I encourage people to thank donors early and often. So at least one thank you should come from the donor and at least one from the organization. And there is no such thing as thanking a donor too many times. So some ideas, you can have the host send an email the next day saying how much money was raised, thanking everyone for coming. The host can send handwritten cards to people that came and thank them for coming. Uh, you can have the organization. I had one organization when I gave, they sent out a new member kit to me as part of the organization. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm a donor now. I can do that. I've just they sent out this thing that now I'm a part of the group. Posting photos of the event on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and tagging people that attended. You can also send out an email to folks with a photo album of the night that people will kind of like to look back and see photos of the event. You can have the executive director or a senior staff member send a personal note or a card to those that attended and thank them for their contribution. I also love the idea of like members of the organization get together for a group photo behind a sign that says thank you, and then send that as a postcard to everyone that attended. You can have board members call new donors to welcome them as supporters to the organization. My favorite story of this was I was doing a house party in Chicago to support an organization in New Orleans. And 2 days later, the people that gave got calls from people in New Orleans saying, hey, we really wanted to call and say thank you for your gift. And I heard feedback from several of the donors saying like, wow, that was really special for us. So yeah, you get the picture, but the most important thing here is if you want people to stick around as donors to the organization, you need to do more than just send people a form letter. Making people feel appreciated for what they do is critical. So, okay, questions.
Don't forget your poll, Jeff.
I was going to say maybe this is an appropriate time to put that up. Can we do the poll now? Just a couple of questions from folks here, like to get a sense of your experience. If you've been to house party fundraisers, if you've hosted a fundraising house party, and if you've been to a fundraising house party since the pandemic. I get the sense that they're coming back, and just curious to see what people say in any of those.
Actually, I held my first house party during the pandemic on a back porch.
Really?
Yeah,
How did that work for you?
It was wonderful. It was great because we were outside. It was this time of year, it was May, and people were really happy to be social but safe. And yeah, one other thing I want to say about that house party is when I invited people, I gave them the expectation that I don't know if I said something like, I wanted big donations. I was very ambitious, and I got them. I got big donations. And
hey, great.
Yeah, I mean, these are people that didn't necessarily, these aren't the wealthiest people in our community or anything, but I said something like, I hope you'll consider a gift of, I'm thinking between $200 and $500, that kind of thing. And yeah, that hasn't happened since, but that was, I've lost my fearlessness, but that was it. Yeah.
I love that. And, so the couple things to be aware of there is if you give an ask amount or a range, people will often surprise you in giving at that amount or range. They may also give at a level below that. but they're probably not going to give more than you ask them to. So it makes sense to ask at a higher level when you're starting. And you can say too, like, all right, if, you know, if $300, feels like a stretch for you, then $25 a month uh, would essentially bring the same amount of money into the organization. You can become a monthly donor here today as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a goal for the whole party. I think then people who feel like they have more capacity than others might step up. So, I don't know.
Yes, and I've seen it more with bigger fundraising events where you push people in the room to say, all right, we're going to keep going until we hit our goal.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that.
Not necessarily. The house party is not quite that tone usually, but hey, if it works for you, great. So, all right. So other questions, and then otherwise we will go to practice.
Can I ask you one question, Jeff?
Yeah,
Could
please.
you speak to this? What if you have someone who's really excited to be a host? They're really willing to open their doors. They have a great house, but they're just terrified of the idea of speaking and making the pitch. What would you recommend to that person or
So,
group?
a couple of things like that may be a time to get a co-host. It is, I think it is, I find it stronger when at least a host is giving the pitch as opposed to like a staff person from the organization. It can happen. I've seen it that way, but like the people are in the room because the host invited them. If a host is willing to give that pitch, great. You can also, like, I have also spent a bunch of time coaching people around and ask, like, if it is I'm definitely, if you have a host that's like, I don't speak in public, like, then get a co-host. If you have somebody that's like, I've never done this before, like, I really need your help in helping me do this well, then spend real time in coaching them to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks. That's good.
Okay. All right. So let's, I am going to drop in the chat here. This is, we had sent out a document to you about an hour before the session. This is another version of it. It has instructions up on top. There are, so here's what we're going to ask you to do. If you want to use the Google Doc, make a copy of that document. Or you can use the document that we sent you earlier, or you can just make notes on a piece of paper or on your computer or whatever. But take 5 minutes, write a couple of notes on each of these 6 questions. You don't have to write out your responses word for word, a couple of bullet points or something, just so that you hit the important things would be helpful. This is a chance for you to practice. All right, how would I make a pitch about my organization to a room full of people? So this six questions is a way to structure that ask. So take 5 minutes, write some notes in each of those. We'll be doing this in small groups, and I think we'll be looking at 2, maybe 3 small groups. And that, so once you've had that 5 minutes to write out some responses, then each person in the group will have 2 minutes to walk through and make their pitch. And folks will have a chance to respond, to give feedback to there. But the whole time that we have is 15 minutes. We want you back here at 3 o'clock. Okay, welcome back. Tanya's got a roll, so we're gonna we're gonna do a couple of examples of pitches. Uh, and Tanya, do you want to kick us off, and then you can skip to your next meeting?
Yes, sir. All right, let me hit it real quick. My name is Tanya Freeman Brown. I'm board member with the LaShawn, which is Louisiana Community Health Outreach Network. LaShawn is an association for community health and outreach workers. Our mission is to support community health workers while advocating for improvements in community health. As a community health worker and advocate, I've benefited personally and professionally and can best contribute my experience to support the advancement of LaShawn's vision and mission. During the pandemic, many community members didn't have the best information or misinformation when it came to the truth about the coronavirus and the vaccine. Community health workers were trained as grassroots organizers to launch into communities hardest hit by the virus with education, vital information, and connection to vital resources to restore the community. And then I'll give a statistic or a fact. And then considering all that I've shared with you today, would you be so kind to reach into your pockets, to break out those iPhones and those droids to contribute $100 to our cause today? Thank you so much for listening, and let's have a good time.
Can I make one comment that we didn't talk about last time in our breakout? That I think you talked about what you did, you got together because of the pandemic, but now what do you do? So, you know, to move it forward.
So what are we doing now?
Or just include that in your pitch.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, I'll take that feedback.
Great presentation, great feedback. How about a round of applause for Tanya? Thank you so much.
I want to note how much you could get in a very short amount. That I was timing you. That was less than 2 minutes, and you covered a lot. So it's just for people to remember that you don't have to talk for 10 minutes to cover a lot of ground, right?
Right, and I'm a talker, so I have to really, really abbreviate myself because I can go on. So for me, and I need a script. That's bottom line is I need a piece of paper with bullet points so that I can deliver a full and a robust pitch.
Great. Can we have one more volunteer before we head into the end of the session?
I can do it if nobody else wants to.
Yeah, please.
I'll make it as quick and dirty as possible. So, okay. Well, you all know me. I'm Jenny and you're at my house. And I'm a board member of Hoosier Action. And I joined Hoosier Action immediately when it was formed right after Trump was elected. And it was actually formed because of that. There was a great fear in our community, and somebody stepped in, Kate stepped in, came down and said, we've got to do something about our state and make sure that people who have no power can learn how to access their own power and be part of the conversation and how our state is run, and create a more welcoming place for all of us, for working people, and a place that takes care of us and takes care of our seniors and our elders and everyone, regardless of your ability. So that's why I got involved. I'm very proud of the work of Hoosier Action. I can't believe what we've done in 5 years. Just this legislative session, when nothing else was happening with our supermajority, we were able to help get a mental health bill passed. And the way we did that was by talking about issues and not worrying about whether you're Republican or Democrat, but really hitting people on issues and telling people stories. So I hope you'll join me in being a part of this organization. You can join on a monthly membership, or give a donation just today, and I'm going to be the first one to do it.
Great. Yeah, and I would be even more specific with that to say, hey, I am, I'm a member of this organization and, and a regular giver. I am giving an extra $50 today because, I believe in the work of the organization and would like you to join me in making a contribution to support the work. We're hoping to raise $2,000 from the room today. Please give as generously as you can.
Thanks. Good feedback.
Great. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I think bringing in the personal when you saying, we were all really freaked out when Trump was elected. I think that's a nice, I mean, that's not so personal, but it sort of brings you back to the origin story of the organization. I think that can be very powerful. And then, yeah, what you've accomplished, that was nice. Nice segue.
Great. Sarah's got a question in the chat I want to take on. And Stephanie, if you've got a thought on this as well. So for an organization that works on multiple issues, do you recommend focusing on just one for the house party? I think it is okay for an organization that works on multiple issues to say, hey, we work on multiple issues. The couple of things that I would say is if you've got, your stories should be as specific as possible. And even if those are in multiple, each story probably addresses an issue. And then depending on what kind of opportunity for giving you want to put in front of folks, yeah, you can. But yeah, I think you can do multiple issues. Do you have thought on that, Stephanie?
No, I agree with that. I mean, part of it is how are you connecting with the audience in the room? So sometimes you might pick an issue to highlight that is going to resonate more with the people, but not because you want to make it seem as if you're working just on that one issue. But yeah, or you can, like Jeff said, you could talk about a specific situation you're working on or program area, but say it's part of a larger. Our organization works on a range of issues. I'm just going to talk about one of them today. You could do it any number of ways, but yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that's nice about a house party is you can have conversations one-on-one with people before and after the formal program. And it's not like a fundraising appeal or a grant proposal where you have to get everything in there. You can kind of see how things are resonating with the audience too and adjust. Yeah.
And depending on if there's anything urgent too. So, you can say, if there's not anything urgent, you can say, well, we work on issues like this and this. Here's an example of a campaign. But if there is something urgent, like I'm working with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, that we've got a situation in Chicago with, hundreds of immigrants that are sleeping on the floors of police stations around the city. Like, if folks are there for a specific, to help with a specific something, then that's where my ask is going to be. So, but you can do it either way. All right. Last chance questions. All right. The moment
Sorry,
you've all been waiting for.
I do have a last chance question. You were saying kind of in the structure of the house party that like kind of 15 minutes should be the program and then 10 minutes of kind of like the pitch. What do you have thoughts about like what goes in that 15 minutes of program? I mean, I know you said kind of about the organization, but like, do you like, I know I've been at one house party where they kind of brought in like a special guest but that wasn't necessarily directly tied to the organization, but could like speak to like a topic of interest for a few minutes. I guess, do you have thoughts about kind of?
That's a possibility. I tend to focus it on like, here's a little bit about the organization. And then especially if you've got folks in the room that can tell personal stories about how they've been helped by the organization. You can do a house party around a speaker or an event, and especially if people have some familiarity with the organization. To say, hey, we know you care about this. We brought in this person to talk to you. Our organization is addressing these issues right now. We want you to give generously.
I think also what Jeff mentioned, the host being the one to make the pitch, but the host or one of the co-hosts should also do the welcome. Like, thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to have you in my home. The reason I care so much about this issue, then you can bring in a little personal story right there.
Yep.
And then you don't, and yeah, if you had a really good, compelling guest speaker, that's great. But as Jeff said, the idea is to keep it simple. So generally there is usually at least one staff person who speaks, wouldn't you say, Jeff? It doesn't have to be, but because it gives a little bit of grounding in what they're actually doing. Again, as long as they don't go on and on about it too long.
I want to add to what Stephanie just said, and that the house party, I've done 2 house parties, and both times I've had one of the organizers from the organization tell a specific, action that they're doing, or something that's going on in their community with their population. So it really is much more effective than having me just talk.
Well, both
Keep
and.
short, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. If you have additional follow-up questions, you can feel free to catch me or Stephanie afterwards. I want to let you go at least close to on time. So anyway, I promised you all a song.
Oh yeah.
This is something that I've been working on. I've still don't have it quite polished yet. And I think that's a good lesson to say you don't have to have everything perfect before you go into a house party fundraiser either, but hope you enjoy. So, I'm sorry. Oh, so thank you.
Wow, Jeff, that's impressive.
Thanks.
Don't forget to fill out your evaluation form.
Yes. So is there a link or
Send it out. I can't remember how that works.
Ambar is going to send it to everyone after.
Oh, Ambar. Okay. Okay. So you get it from Ambar.
Yeah.
Great.
keep an eye out for it? Go ahead and fill out the evaluation and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. That was
Thank
really great.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Take care.